Hi everyone, and welcome to today's Agricultural Roads Improvement Program video tutorial. My name is Hillary Pelton and I serve as a statewide ARIP Program Manager. Today I'm here just to share a few updates with you following the recent Round 1 project solicitation, as well as any clarifications or reminders we'd like to share as you prepare to apply in the upcoming Round 2 project solicitation. So let's get started. First, I'll start with a reminder of what the ARIP program is. This program was established in 2023 as a one-time $150 million SEG-funded grant appropriation within the framework of the Local Roads Improvement Program, or the LRIP program. The intent of the ARIP program is to provide state funding to assist local governments in fixing deteriorating Class B or weight-restricted roadways that currently restrict the ability for agricultural or forestry producers to transport full loads of goods. In the current biennial budget, we have $120 million set aside in ARIP funding, as $30 million was targeted towards the new Local Small Structure Improvement Program, or the LSIP program. ARIP is a state-funded reimbursement program that funds up to 90% of eligible road improvement projects. Funding is competitively awarded through a statewide selection process by the ARIP Discretionary Selection Committee, and once awarded, projects are locally advertised and let. One additional aspect that really helps to set the ARIP program apart is that it allows for quarterly reimbursement requests. So rather than any local government needing to front the full project cost and wait until the project is fully complete to be reimbursed, project sponsors can instead request reimbursement for any costs that they've incurred throughout the life of the project for eligible engineering and construction costs. And next, let's do a refresher of all of the eligibility requirements that must be met by any project seeking ARIP funding. The first statutory requirement is that the road or the road where the bridge or culvert is located must be functionally classified by the department as a local road or a minor collector. Second, if the project is solely for the improvement of a bridge or a culvert, the bridge or culvert must be 20 feet or less in length and cannot be eligible for federal funding under another federal program that already provides funding for bridge improvements. Third, the road must provide access to agricultural lands or facilities that are used to produce agricultural or forestry goods, and that road must be utilized by at least one agricultural producer. 4 is that the road must be designated as a Class B highway due to structural deficiencies or have been posted subject to a posted weight limitation for at least 1 month in the previous year. And to be as inclusive and as expansive as possible, we have interpreted this requirement to be any time prior to the application deadline going back to last January. The next requirement is upon completion of a ARIP project, the road can no longer be designated as a Class B highway or subject to a posted weight limitation unless under extraordinary or emergency circumstances. And finally, the road or bridge or culvert must be maintained by a political subdivision. So as I mentioned previously, we have $120 million available in funding in this current biennial budget. But with that $120 million, that funding is split across two separate project solicitation rounds. So looking at round 1 here, we received 122 eligible applications that were submitted, and those applications requested over $250 million in project costs. This just continues to show the strong demand across the state, and with limited funding and a competitive award process, it's important to submit clear, compelling applications that demonstrate the impact of your project. This map shown on the right here indicates where those applications came in from statewide. With the $50 million that was available to award in the Round 1 solicitation, the ARIP Discretionary Selection Committee ultimately awarded 29 projects across 28 counties. The map shown here indicates where those applications and awards came from across the state. With those selections, the ARIP program has now awarded a total of 120 projects since the program was established. And of those 120 projects, around 13 have been completed so far. Looking ahead to round two, I'm happy to say that the project solicitation is open as of today. We are now accepting applications for up to $70 million that we have remaining in funding to award in this current biennium. Applicants have until 5 p.m. on June 29th to submit applications. And if you applied in the previous round one solicitation or also in the previous biennium, you will be able to easily copy forward your application in ARIP Web for reconsideration. After WisDOT completes its eligibility review following the application deadline, the Discretionary Selection Committee will then begin their application review from July through September, and we anticipate award announcements to go out in late October to early November 2026. Now, I just want to share a few updates with you ahead of any applications that are submitted for funding. The first being that we have refreshed the ARIP webpage to make the information easier to find and more accessible for everyone. So you can see in this screenshot here, the FAQs are a very helpful resource and can still be found at the top of the webpage, as well as the solicitation timelines are now in there as well in a table format for you to easily see what's going on with the program. As you continue scrolling down on the ARIP webpage, you will see the program resources are now in an organized table view that includes the link directly to the resource, and the column on the right helps to describe what the resource is meant to serve and how it can be helpful or useful to you. Additional information can be seen as you continue to scroll down the page, including links to this recording and any previous video tutorials, as well as copies of presentations, award lists, and other related resources. And finally, at the bottom of the ARIP webpage, you can still find information on project eligibility or project selections by clicking the plus icon there to expand the banner and to display more information, or you can click the minus icon there to collapse the information, and you can still see that our contact information is also shown at the bottom of the webpage. Next, just a reminder for the materials that you'll want to reference as you begin preparing your application. So you'll see here on the screen the guidelines, the eligibility map, the ARIP web application, and the step-by-step user guide are going to be your most important resources that I highly recommend you give some time to while or before you're applying for ARIP funding to help answer any common questions that we receive. These resources, of course, are available on the ARIP webpage, and please do take a look at them to help to avoid any common mistakes. And of course, I am always available to help as well. The Guidelines and Requirements document is a resource that's going to take you through the whole life cycle of the program, including the program objective, our general requirements, different project improvement types, or to help answer some definitions of questions that you may see within that ARIP web application, what the eligible or ineligible project costs are under this program, and other details or processes that are involved from the project award to project completion. So that is where you can find what to expect during the application process, but also there is a very helpful checklist if you are awarded funding so that you're aware of what next steps you need to follow after you receive your SMA to continue on. Additionally, we do have a 2-page PDF available to anyone who would prefer that path versus using the ARIP web application. However, we do encourage you as much as possible to use the online application, as it really helps to give the full picture view of the entire application process. But feel free to reach out to me, though, if you need any assistance otherwise. Here we have a quick reference table that helps to summarize the application process. So this table will just walk you through at a higher level what to expect before applying, the steps during the application, and what will happen after you apply. So this is a helpful snapshot of what to expect to help you quickly orient yourself to where you are in the process. Now let's move into the ARIP web application so we can share any reminders or updates that we have following the round one solicitation. So first I just want to cover the process for copying forward an application. So this is available in ARIP web, and this is for anyone who has previously applied for funding and was not awarded. So that may have occurred in this recent round one or in the previous biennium. So here I am showing that we want to log into ARIP web and click on apply for a project. Then you will see this copy a request box will pop up, and from there you can use the biennium field there to drop down to show whether you applied in the previous biennium or this most recent round one, and then you will select in the other drop down menus the county where your municipality is located and then the name of your municipality, and then we will click the green lookup feature there. If you have an application that was previously denied, that is where it will then pop up. So this is just an example shown here. This is where you can see that application. As mentioned previously, if you applied in the last biennium, there may be a gap in some information shown from the data import. So the en route information may not appear, but it will for any of the most recent round one applications. So just bear that in mind. If you want to then copy that application forward, this is when you will click on the action radio button here that I'm circling with my cursor. You go ahead and select that, and then you will go down and select skip if you change your mind and would like to apply from scratch, or next if yes, I want to proceed with copying forward my application. And you'll see from there, as soon as you hit next, that then automatically copies your application in ARIP web, and any information that was already populated, you will then see on that next screen, and then you can move through the typical application process. Moving through each banner, you can see here the first one being the general information. So this is when you as the applicant can review the application in its entirety and make any updates or any corrections, anything to help your application continue to be more competitive. This is hopefully a way for you to not have to start from scratch. It will include all of your prior attachments as well. If you have any issues though, as you're going along, feel free to reach out to me and I'd be happy to help. Whether you are a returning applicant or a brand new applicant, when you go into ARIP web to apply for funding in this round 2 solicitation, you will see a few minor changes that we want to bring to your attention. And the first being under the economic assessment portion of the application. You will now see at the top of this section of the application, we have a description there to show exactly what information we're looking to capture within that entire section, and a list of eligible and ineligible producer product types. And the change here is to note that sand is now an eligible producer product type. In the past, it was considered an ineligible product, but this has now been reevaluated, and we're happy to say that this is now something that you can include on your application, both in consideration of any volume of sand that is transported for agricultural use, such as for animal bedding. You can include the sales for the sand as well. So you can now add this in there. You'll see underneath the second screenshot here, as you are inputting the producer's contact information and the products that they help to transport on your road, you can select the different category types. If sand is included as one of those types, you'll want to select the other checkbox, and then you'll see a text box will appear for you to type in what are the other product types, and that's when you can type in sand. Another update to note to the ARIP application in the round 2 project solicitation that you will see is that at the bottom of the economic assessment portion, a new question has been added to the application related to supplemental route connectivity information. So you'll see in the screenshot here, the question is, does the project route connect to a Class A roadway? And you can hover over the information bubble that shows there that this information will help to support the selection committee's review by providing providing additional context on the functional role of the route and how it interacts with the surrounding roadways. So applicants will be asked to answer yes or no to this question. And regardless of the answer, all applicants are required to provide a response there in the text box shown. So any additional narrative that you can provide to help give the committee a full picture view of the route itself and any of the connecting roadways. If the answer is no, that your route does not connect to a Class A roadway, just any information you can provide to help share what potential weight restrictions still exist on some of your connecting roadways and if there are any planned improvements in the future to help improve the access. So you will now see this added as a required question to answer, and this will help to ensure that the committee receives consistent contextual detail for every submission. Next, a reminder with the application process is the required attachments. You'll remember there are a number of attachments that are optional or required. So the required items are your cost reduction narrative and proof of load posting. The proof of load posting tends to be the main reason that an application is returned for clarification or correction. So I wanted to touch on that today just to share hopefully some helpful information going into this. So a weight restriction that meets the eligibility requirements is that the road is designated as a Class B highway or is subject to a weight restriction such as seasonal weight restrictions or a special weight restriction. So like if a bridge is closed for safety reasons. So that documentation must be uploaded with your application, and some examples of some sufficient documentation to help support that. There is a variety of ways to help provide that information, so I just want to cover on what a few of those are. The first can be a dated photograph of a weight restriction sign, so long as there is location context, so that we can reasonably see that there was a weight restriction on the roadway in the application and that it is dated to help show that it was for at least 1 month in the prior year. Another example is a municipal statement or an email from the municipality confirming that that roadway on the application itself was rate restricted and the time frame that it was restricted for. Next can be a seasonal posting notice or a table. This applies only for county roadways, but if you have county posting dates, that is considered sufficient to provide. Essentially, we're just looking for documentation that will help to reasonably show that a weight restriction existed on the roadway within the application, that the time frame was for at least 1 month or greater. Those are the information that I will be looking for. If I'm not able to reasonably determine that from the application, I will return it to you to ask for more clarification. Now for some examples of insufficient proof of load posting, you can see them shown here. We will only ask for additional clarification when the time frame is unclear or we are not able to reasonably confirm that your road was weight restricted for at least 1 month. If we're unclear whether the restriction applies to the roadway in the application, and that the documentation does not clearly come from or represent your municipality or county. So those are some of the items that we're looking for that may potentially trigger an application to be returned to you for additional clarification. So I'm hoping some of these examples here are helpful, that if the photo is undated with no time frame or context, if it's a screenshot of a general policy or a web page that provides no confirmation of when the restriction occurred, or that it was specific to your roadway. If you have a local road and you're including a county posting, that may not be sufficient documentation. And again, I'm just looking for, does the documentation clearly show when the restriction occurred and that it applied to your roadway? So if I'm unable to answer that question from your attachment, just know that I will be reaching out to you for additional clarification. Those are all the updates I have to share today regarding the application itself. However, here's just a few reminders. Once you submit an application to WisDOT, you will automatically receive a confirmation email from ARIP Web within 24 hours of your submission so that you know it was successfully received. So if you don't receive anything, feel free to log back into ARIP Web to double check or reach out to me for any assistance. If an application is submitted after the deadline or doesn't meet all of the eligibility requirements, it will be denied and you will be notified via email that the application was denied in those cases. And in that case, it means it will not be put forth in front of the selection committee. In cases where additional information or clarification is needed, the application will be returned by me to your work queue in ARIP Web, and you'll receive an email notification the following day that will essentially say it has been put back into your work queue and requires your attention. At that point, it's important to act quickly. Applicants should plan to address any requested updates within about 7 business days or less to help keep things moving forward to committee review. So that will be our window for us to work together to review any corrections or clarifications that may be needed to help you put forth the most successful application possible in front of the discretionary selection committee next steps. Now, to share a few reminders regarding the reimbursement process for ARIP. Again, ARIP is a reimbursement-based program, so this means municipalities or counties can incur costs and then submit reimbursement requests through ARIP Web. Reimbursements are allowed quarterly and based on the Wisconsin state fiscal year, so 1 request per quarter, but each request can include multiple invoices. And we're hoping that this flexibility will allow you to either pay contractors right away, or if timing allows, wait until reimbursement funds are received by WisDOT before paying. So that is provided that the itemized invoices are included in your reimbursement request to show that you've incurred those costs. When it comes to how much is reimbursed in your request, ARIP covers 100% of incurred costs up to the original project amount or 90% of the total final cost, whichever is less. So any cost above and beyond the original award amount that's noted within your SMA will remain the responsibility of the local sponsor. Once WisDOT reviews and approves the request, payments are made directly to the municipality through ACH within about 30 days, as long as all required information is complete and submitted within your reimbursement request. Now I just want to share a quick refresher of the different funding scenarios that can occur and why it's so important to have a comprehensive and accurate project estimate to help you avoid surprises down the road. So on this slide here, we're showing 3 possible funding scenarios, and they all start with an initial project estimate of $100,000. So of course, scenario 1 is the ideal case where you entered $100,000 as your total estimated project cost on your application. You were awarded 90% of that funding, so your SMA has $90,000 state funded and $10,000 is the local sponsor's share. At your final reimbursement, you enter that your final project cost is still $100,000, so nothing changes. The 90-10 split holds and your local share continues to be $10,000. Scenario 2 is when your final project costs are higher than your original estimate. So let's say your actual costs in the end are $120,000. In this case, the state's share stays capped at $90,000 because that was the original award amount. So we are capped at that dollar amount. That then means that your local sponsor share increases to $30,000 to cover the difference. Now, scenario 3 is when your final cost came in lower than you originally estimated. So for example, $80,000 is your cost in the end. That then means that our state cost share for your project reduces to $72,000 and your local share drops to $8,000. And this is because ARIP funding is reimbursed up to the original award amount or 90% of your final cost, whichever is less. So this means when you are in ARIP Web and you're doing that final reimbursement request, you will be asked to put in your total cost in the end. And if your costs are lower than you originally estimated, we will then recalculate that 90% award based on your new total cost in the end. So you will see that change, and this is to help ensure that at the end of your project, you are ultimately still reimbursed 90% of those total costs. And hopefully this is helpful to show why it is so important to have a accurate estimate as much as possible on the front end. Now, some tips for success during your application process, and this is based on feedback from WisDOT or the ARIP Discretionary Selection Committee. The first is to consider including additional photographs and/or maps that clearly illustrate the project area and the agricultural or forestry operations that are served. So if it's helpful to see images of the project route or the conditions of the roadway, as well as any producers who utilize the roadways and any facilities or lands that are located along the project route, for example. Provide a clear and detailed project description, including the existing roadway conditions and the scope of proposed improvements. Explain how the project will reduce trips, improve efficiency, and help to support a reliable, all-season roadway that supports a 10-year lifespan. Next, clearly describe how the roadway will be used following the project completion. And we understand that the application process requires collaboration between local governments and the producers who utilize the route. So again, the agricultural producer support form is available for you to utilize in those conversations to help capture producer contact information and their sales or volume approximates that are transported on your roadway to help support your application. So those forms are intended to be commodity neutral, and we do recommend it may be helpful for you to provide copies of those forms that are completed by your producers within the application, as they can help the committee as they review the applications if they have any questions, to help substantiate any reported economic data that you included within your application. You can also provide testimonials or letters of support from producers or stakeholders to help further demonstrate the project need and benefit for your community. And finally, you can highlight whether the project route connects to or is adjacent to a Class A all-season roadway. If you have any questions or need support, here are the program contacts at WisDOT for the ARIP program, myself included. Don't hesitate to reach out to us. We are here to help you navigate the process and make sure you have the best chance for success. All right, folks, those are all the updates that I have to share today. So thank you so much for taking the time to watch today's video. I would like to close us out with a before and after photo that was submitted from the town of Lind that received an ARIP award previously, along with a testimonial that they were kind enough to provide to help speak to the impact that the ARIP funding has had on their community, as well as how their overall experience was with the reimbursement process and so on. So it was a pleasure to help support them with their project, and I look forward to working with all of you on the application process and the award process, or helping to see your project be delivered to completion. So it's a pleasure to have this program. Overall, the ARIP program continues to have a meaningful impact, not only on improving the lifespan of the roads, helping to remove those weight restrictions and overall safety for everyone's community, as well as helping producers to move product to market on the most efficient route possible. So thank you all for your continued interest and support in the ARIP program, and have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.